And kicking off the men's Novice 4 semifinal, we have lane 1, Bucknell, lane 2, Florida, lane 3, UC Berkeley lightweights. Those are the Cal lightweights. Lane 4, Delaware, lane 5, Connecticut, and lane 6, Notre Dame. And it looks like everybody is connected right now. We're only a minute 55, 2 minutes into this race, but whew, this is going to be tight.
Yep. And with 25 entries over the course of, or over this entire category, again, it's going to be really hotly contested as each of these crews in this particular semifinal aims to get into that grand final. And Whitney, this is about as good as it gets. We have 6 boats that are super, super connected, as you said. So no one has broken away. There's no open water for anyone. But what is sure is that Connecticut, rowing out of lane 5, is your early leader. They've got about a stern advantage over the boat right next to them from Delaware. So Delaware in second. They are sitting about 2 seats over both lane 2 and lane 6. So Florida and Notre Dame, those two boats fairly even. And then in the 5th place position, it's going to be Berkeley lightweights, followed by Bucknell in 6. But again, anything can change. This is still very, very early on.
You know, as we see this beautiful drone shot here, one thing that's really kind of fun to notice is the rating versus how long everybody's staying in the water. So we have all these boats that are connected, but we have some boats at higher rates, some boats that are a little bit longer. So it kind of comes down to later in the race who can actually maintain whatever they're doing. So we'll see if some of these boats start to get a little bit tired at the higher rates, if, some of these boats that are staying in the water a little bit longer at the lower rates, but maybe with a little bit more power being squeezed out of that second half. We're going to see which strategy prevails.
Exactly. In Connecticut, they have a slightly elevated stroke rate. I have them clocked at about 33, 34 strokes a minute, whereas the boat right next to them, behind them, Delaware, rowing at about a 30. So as a strategy, that could really work, I'm going to say, in Delaware's favor because, again, it matters what happens at the finish line. You've got to make sure that you have enough energy to get through that sprint, to get through that third 500, which is really the dark part of that race. So for those of you who might be watching for the first time, we kind of tend to break up the 2,000-meter race into 4 segments. That first 500 usually is anyone's race. You could do anything for 500 meters. You got to get a good start, but it doesn't necessarily make or break your race. When you move into that second 500, that's kind of where you're establishing a rhythm. You're establishing, the theme, if you will, for the rest of that race. Third 500, that's truth. That's where the fitness, that's where it's shown on the water. That's where truth comes out, right? So the third 500, really, really a tough spot on this course. And with novice rowing, a lot of sometimes inconsistent racing. You could have a great race one day, the next day just total, disaster. But, when you're here at a national championship, you want every race to be better than the last one. So Connecticut doing a really nice job continuing to hold off Delaware, shaking out just a little bit more. We'll see if we can separate out what's happening with some of the other boats. We had Notre Dame in 3rd, Berkeley lightweights in 4th, Florida, and then Bucknell rounding out that 5th and 6th place spot. But I think that a little bit has changed. We're going to see if we have a little bit of a different view so we can update you again on placement. All right, coming into the final 250 meters, and we're looking at a pretty solid push here by that's going to be Delaware. So Delaware having overtaken Connecticut for that first place position. So a lot happened there in that final 500 meters. So Delaware coming in as your winner across the line. That will be them with their bow first across the line. They're followed by Connecticut. So Connecticut slipping back into that second place position. And now here comes Florida. So Florida in third. Really, really tight here between UC Berkeley and Bucknell. So Cal coming across in fourth, followed by Bucknell. And then finally, Notre Dame. So a lot of change up between that race. We always tend to see that. We can start out with one set of placements, and then by the end, something completely different has happened, and that's exactly what you saw in that race. So great racing to those gentlemen. Again, this is contesting for a spot in the grand final or the petite final. Top three boats advance to the grand level final. And we already have a start in the second semifinal for the men's novice 4. In lane 1, Purdue. Lane 2, Penn State. Lane 3, Western Washington. Lane 4, Rhode Island. Lane 5, Vanderbilt. And lane 6, Washington State.
All right, and it looks like in our men's novice 4, second semifinal here. Again, pretty tight race, not too much spread yet, but it looks like University of Rhode Island in lane 4 taking the lead right away, but not by much, because in lane 3, in that second place position, we have the Western Washington men, followed by Vanderbilt in lane 5, and it looks like we're kind of pairing up here with a few different races going on. So in lane 5, in that third place position, Vanderbilt, again, not by much, because lane 2, Penn State, coming right up behind, followed by Purdue in lane 1, and then Washington State, again, lane 6. But we have some pretty tight racing here. Looks like and it looks like our leaders are still Western Washington men and University of Rhode Island. Looks like maybe the advantage to Rhode Island here, but not by much, a deck at most. That coxswain is definitely looking over, hopefully not getting too excited or too frantic yet, but kind of deciding what strategy they want to take in order to start walking away from Washington. We have Vanderbilt kind of coming up behind, but again, 3-boat race here. We've got Vanderbilt, we've got Penn State, we've got Purdue on the outside there, and this is going to be a close 3-boat race for that third place position. Everyone connected. So we've got our top leaders, again, University of Rhode Island, Western Washington, kind of walking it away, but still connected. Coxswain's doing a good job steering down those courses. And that 3-boat race just behind him for the chase, that is Vanderbilt, Penn State, and Purdue.
And Whitney, while you were giving the placement, I was able to get a few stroke rates, and I've got the URI boat, the Rhode Island boat, clocked at 35 strokes a minute. Western Washington, maybe a little bit more patient at 33. Again, these are very, very strong crews, so they can handle the higher stroke ratings and doing a really nice job pushing each other, and now with a significant amount of open water between themselves and the remaining crews. So again, it's going to be anybody's race for that third place position. Right now, Penn State or Vanderbilt, it's anyone's call. So hopefully, again, we've talked about the positioning for the coxswain. Coxswain is down into the bow of the boat. She can see the direction that the boat is going, but sometimes it's a little bit hard to look around and see where that action is. So a savvy coxswain has to know exactly how to stay connected to the other boats on the field. How hard is that, Whitney?
Well, it can actually be quite difficult. And as you progress as a coxswain, you start to get a little bit better on feel. You start to pay attention to what your boat is doing a little bit more. And you kind of listen. You do have to use the guys or women in your boat to have them communicate if somebody's charging up behind you. You kind of use your peripherals. But you know what else makes this a challenge in these bow loaders that people don't think about are being able to see the buoy lines, especially when the water's a little bit choppy. You are right there in it. And so sometimes it's really difficult to pay attention to where the other boats are, keeping your line really straight right down the center of that course without veering around, and also being able to see everything with a little bit of chop and sometimes some spray in your face. So there's a lot of challenge here.
And not panicking. I think that's the other thing. It's a long race course. There is a whole lot of opportunity to, kind of reevaluate where you are as a crew, give a tactic to your crew that's going to be effective, but not cause anyone to panic, because there's a whole lot of adrenaline going on, especially right off at the start. But then once that adrenaline is gone, you're just working on pure power, pure speed, and fitness. And right now, this race between Rhode Island and Western Washington kind of makes my stomach hurt. It's like that race where it's just stroke for stroke. It's anyone's race, and you know that it's going to come down to the wire. But right now, looking at these two crews, they really are just dead set across from each other. It's bow ball to bow ball. So I'd love to be able to mic up the coxswains to hear what they're saying. Both boats at 500 meters to go, they have left everyone else behind in their wake. And now what we're going to see is that race for third. Who's going to get into that grand final? Is it going to be Vanderbilt or Penn State? I'm going to give that advantage right now to Vanderbilt.
I'm actually sweating watching this race. This is a nail biter. I have to say, coming through the 1500, this has been a lot of fun to watch these crews duke it out. And these guys are just out here having a great time. They are clearly excited to race, and these coxswains are absolutely going for it. So I'm really excited to see what happens here as we start coming into the last 250. It looks like our leaders, again, stressful. I'm stressed just watching this, but in an excited way. So I can't wait to see, who's at the catch, who's at the finish, who is going to cross the line first for that final.
Yeah, and who has the most effective sprint? Because this is going to, this bodes well for a really, really exciting grand final tomorrow. But 250 meters right now for both Western Washington and URI. They've pushed each other all the way down the race course from start to this point. And we're going to see who is able to get their bow first across that line. But then back to them by a good amount of open water. It looks like Vanderbilt has pushed themselves into that third place position, and Penn State is in fourth. In fifth, we're going to move out to Purdue, rowing out of lane 1, and then finally Washington State. But right now, if you had a camera, if you were looking at this live stream, this is just really, really exciting here. URI still in the top spot, so they were able to push off Western Washington and hold on to that lead. It will be their bow first across the line at the finish. And honestly, still pretty tight between Vanderbilt and Penn State. What a sprint from Penn State. We're going to be watching this all the way down to the wire. We've got binoculars out. We're taking a look at that finish line string. But I'm going to give it to Vanderbilt to hold on to that third place spot. Penn State just barely missing out on that spot in the grand finals, but that's unofficial. So we'll wait for the official results to come out. Purdue coming along in that fifth place spot, and then finally Washington State. Great racing.
Perfect. And kicking off our third semifinal for the men's novice 4. We already have some steering issues just in the first 100 meters or so, pushing off the blocks. So this is going to be quite exciting here. In lane 1, we have Long Beach State. In 2, GMU, that is Georgia. In lane 3, Liberty. And lane 4, Arizona State. Lane 5, University of Cincinnati. And lane 6, Pittsburgh. And since we've already had a little bit of steering here, it looks like everybody's straightened out again. We are past the breakage point. Everyone's kind of going to start cruising into, I think, the race pace, about a minute in now. So it should be about time to see where everyone settles in and how this race goes, if it's going to be just as exciting as the last one. And I want to make a correction here. Lane 2, I got very excited there, and I said Georgia, and that is George Mason. So forgive me there.
And indeed, early leader is going to be coming out of lane 3. That is Liberty. So with a really good start, again, with some of these crews as novices, sometimes you see a little bit of overexcitement, maybe not quite getting their point exactly where they need to be before they start. So we saw a little bit of steering corrections coming out of some of the crews. But Liberty, with a really nice start here, they are holding on to just about a deck lead over both GMU and Arizona State. So George Mason and Arizona State right next to them. Slight advantage now just in these last few strokes for the second place going to Arizona State. So back to those top 3 crews by a bit of open water is going to be your 4th, 5th, and 6th place crews. And, really I'm looking at 2 different boat races here. 1st, 2nd, and 3rd up front, and then 4th, 5th, and 6th straight across. So jockeying for position. Again, this is the semifinal that will push these crews into either the C level final or a D level final. And right now, Liberty and Arizona pushing each other super, super hard to get into that top spot with George Mason right there. Now back to behind them for 4th, it will be Long Beach State. Long Beach State sitting about 4 seats over University of Cincinnati. So Cincinnati in 5th, and then finally Pittsburgh in 6th. All right, and here is Arizona. They have taken over Liberty for that top spot. Liberty right behind them. So again, not that much of a lead, but they are just kind of taking the boat along. Really, really good rowing here. And like Whitney had said earlier, hard to tell that these are novice crews, except for maybe a little bit of steering, with the excitement of the start, with a few little technical bobbles here and there. The timing for all of these crews really looks quite nice. So Arizona doing a nice job. They've pushed themselves into the lead. They have 4 seats now over Liberty. Liberty sitting 4 seats, maybe a little bit more now over George Mason. So those are your top 3 crews. For 4th, we're going to move to the far shore. That's Long Beach State. They are sitting 2 seats over Cincinnati. And then in the 6th place spot continues to be Pittsburgh. Yesterday, when I was able to speak to the crew from Arizona State, again, they are the only collegiate crew in Arizona, so they do tend to row in a bit of isolation. They come to California for quite a few of their regattas. They go to San Diego. They race in the WIRA at the Western Championships out there at Lake Natoma. But one thing that has stayed really, really solid for them through all of these changes over COVID and whatnot has been their leadership. So their coaches have stuck with them through thick and thin. They lost about 3/4 of their team. So they've really had to rebuild, and they've done a really, really good job recruiting, bringing in new athletes, and showing them, what is out there in the world of rowing. And I think being able to come all the way across the country and row at a national championship in your first year of racing is really, there's something to be said for that in terms of how you build a program. So hats off to Arizona. They are all novices. They are all in their first year of rowing, and really have done quite a nice job in their season. And they're proving that right here.
Yeah, hats off to them. They're out there rowing in Tempe Lake, right outside Phoenix, and maybe they're just used to the heat. Maybe they're used to the heat here out in Tennessee, so they're feeling a little bit at home. But I think you're right. Many accolades to their coach, and so many props to what they've done with their program out there. And they've hosted some cool events. People are kind of starting to go out to Arizona a little bit more. Really doing a great job. So let's get back to a few updates here on where everybody stands.
All right, Arizona State doing a nice job now with an open water lead over Liberty. So Liberty, again, a small evangelical college in Virginia. They brought a very small squad out here, but doing a great job in these novice boats. So Arizona in the lead, followed by Liberty. Really close here between University of Cincinnati and George Mason University for that third or fourth place position. And then moving to the outside lanes, it's anyone's race between Pittsburgh and Long Beach State. I'm going to give the slight advantage to Pittsburgh for the fifth place spot, but we'll see as they come a little bit closer into view as to where that placement will lie. And again, we're coming into the final 250 meters. This is where the stroke rates come up and where we see a little bit of movement sometimes between crews that might have a little bit more in the tank. All right, and finishing here will be Arizona State with an open water lead. They are followed by Liberty. We're hearing a ton of cheering for that Liberty University. That is so great to hear. Lots and lots of support from their teammates. And now here comes George Mason in the third place spot. They are followed by Long Beach State, and then finally Cincinnati and Pittsburgh. Okay, and we are back in the racing action here with the final semifinal of the men's novice 4. Again, we had 25 entrants over all teams for the men's novice 4. So what we're seeing is the second semifinal that will contest for the C and D finals, the third level and fourth level final. In lane 1, Kansas. Lane 2, Orange Coast. Lane 3, Central Florida. Lane 4, Northwestern, and Lane 5, Vermont. And right now, your early leader is going to come out of lane 6, or excuse me, that will be lane 5. That is Vermont. Vermont with just maybe a bow ball lead over Central Florida. Those two crews already establishing a bit of open water over the rest of the field. In third, we're going to move over to Northwestern. Northwestern rowing out of lane 4. And then very close to them, it will be Kansas. So Kansas actually, just as I said that, I think we have a little bit better angle now. Kansas actually in third, Northwestern in fourth. And then finally, Orange Coast in the 5th place position. Again, very early on, probably just past the first 500. And we will give it just a little bit of time to see if we can get more separation between especially these top 2 boats, Central Florida and Vermont, to see who can establish a solid lead. All right, and we are so lucky to have our drone pilots out there giving us these great overhead shots. It is a very difficult job, and we expect a lot from them. So doing their best out here, and the weather is holding, so we're super, super grateful for Grant, our drone pilot, who is doing a fabulous job giving us this amazing view of Melton Lake as these crews progress down the race course. So again, we wanted to give it a little bit of time to see if there would be some more spacing between the top crews, but right now still really, really close between Central Florida and Vermont. I'm going to give maybe a 1-seat advantage right now to Central Florida for the lead over Vermont. And then back to them, it will be Northwestern, followed by Orange Coast, and then, Kansas, and then Orange Coast. So let's see if we can get them into a little bit better view and maybe give you some stroke rates. Yes, I was able to get Central Florida clocked at about 31 strokes a minute. Behind them, Vermont maybe at a slightly higher stroke rating of about a 32. So again, a 4 is a little bit heavier of a boat, even though these guys are super strong. But, we don't have the flattest water. We maybe have a little bit of a tickle of a wind. And so keeping that stroke rate low, not only is it going to conserve maybe just a little bit of energy, but it's also going to allow you to let the boat run out from underneath you. So maybe a little bit more effective. So hats off to Central Florida for holding on to this lead. They have really just ticked it away, walked it away from Vermont. It was really like a back and forth battle between those two boats in that third 500. But now Central Florida, they've just taken off. So now for them, open water over Vermont. Back to them, it's going to be Northwestern in the third place position, sitting with about a stern advantage, maybe a little bit more over Kansas, and then finally Orange Coast College. So this is the final semifinal for the men's novice 4, one of the most subscribed to categories of the entire race here at ACRA's.
Oh, yeah, we got some 8s next. Woo!